morning, or actually it's officially afternoon now. I'm here at Think Tank. I like Sundays because I usually get to kind of read a little bit or study some articles or do something a little more relaxed since it is a Sunday and you have to work here pretty early. So I read this article which bothered me because I really despise bland, all-encompassing, non-fact-based statements, or even if they're fact-based, but they're just worded in a way that doesn't explain why they happen. So I was reading this article in the statement that bothered me, which really isn't bad because it's true. It just said, meditation helps relieve anxiety, depression, improve concentration and attention, and improves overall psychological well-being. Which those things are relatively true, but that's all it said. And then it went on with another part of the article. So I knew that the main reason why meditation is so beneficial is because it increases the gray matter of your brain. And gray matter, I'm not going to delve into it or pretend like I know much about it at all, but the gray matter is the cell structure of your brain, and then it also includes the unmyelinated axons that protrude from it, and the glial cells that take nutrients from one brain cell to the other. So basically, meditational practices, daily meditational practices, over time have been shown to increase the gray matter in your brain. One of the very cool things that some of these studies are showing, most studies on this subject study mainly older people who have already practiced meditation over time. But I found this article, and it was, this study was done by a Harvard professor who was a runner, and then he got hurt, and in order to stay active, he started picking up yoga. And I guess he went into a yoga studio, and the teacher was saying, this will increase your compassion and your patience and all of that. And he was like, well, that's cool, but it's BS, and I'm just here to stretch. But over time, and over daily meditational and mindfulness practices, he actually was reaping those benefits and more compassionate and patient, and he started to delve into it. So the first study he did was on 50-year-old people who had been meditating for the majority of their lives, and he measured the gray matter in different portions of their brain. And what it showed was that the gray matter in a 50-year-old's brain who had been mindful and meditative throughout the majority of their life, 20 or 30 years, had the amount of gray matter of a 25-year-old person on average, which is very cool. But in his perspective, which makes sense, he wondered if the people who practice those meditative practices already had more gray matter in their brain. Like people like that just kind of seek those processes. So what he did was he did a few different studies on younger people who had never done any meditational practice, and he put them through an 8-week program of meditation. And the cool thing that he showed on these young people who had never practiced meditation, that in as short as 8 weeks, 4 different portions of their brain were able to increase in gray matter in only 8 weeks. So the portions of the brain that control self-relevance, cognition, emotional regulation, and perspective, compassion, all of that showed an increase in the gray matter in the brain, the thickness of the gray matter, which is basically making your brain bigger. And it makes more routes for signals to be sent and makes it function faster and work better. So those portions of the brain were working better. And then the amygdala, which is the part of your brain that's related to stress, fight or flight, anxiety, depression, the gray matter in that area actually decreased in only 8 weeks. So the cool thing of this study showed that, so I had to go in, because I guess my camera was full, which happens when you have 4 dogs and like the world's most adorable stepchild. So I had to delete some things and start over. And I know I was talking about the amygdala, which is like center for emotions in your brain. So that meditation decreases the gray matter in that area over time, which makes for more focused and purposeful emotion, if that makes sense. It's not all over the place. It's more strategic. And all of these studies are really cool. And what that means for us, especially as a business that thrives on mindfulness, is you don't have to wait till the end of your life to see the benefits of things like meditation. You can reap those benefits now if you just make a point to dedicate that time to yourself. One thing that Joe, the owner, my fiance, always says is that, how does he put it? Making time for yourself is never selfish. So an hour a day should never be considered too much. You should dedicate that to yourself. And the cool thing about flotation is it makes for a functional space for that to happen. If you're like me and you've never been able to sit to meditate before, or are constantly overwhelmed in a sensory sense, I see so many colors and things that distract me, or think about the things that I need to do while I'm trying to meditate, but that doesn't necessarily happen in the float tank because the space was built for it. So I feel like we are very lucky to be able to experience something like that, and to have a business that is dedicated to taking time out for yourself. That's why we do it, and we make sure that we float on a weekly basis, because it's worth it, and we're worth it, and your brain is worth it. And if you can help the health of your brain for a lifetime, then you should absolutely start to dedicate an hour to yourself once a week, That's how I put it. Like, if I can't dedicate an hour to myself a week to float, but I'll dedicate countless hours to my job, and countless hours to my partner, and countless hours to his child, and countless hours to everything else, but I can't give myself 1 hour once a week to float, then I'm doing it wrong. If you don't dedicate time to yourself, then you can't put that energy into somebody else. So I loved when I was reading these articles that I'm not just putting time into something that's not truly giving me benefits. There's science behind this. There's science behind why meditation is good for your brain, and how an hour in the flotation tank, not only are you absorbing so much magnesium, but you're letting your brain relax. When there's less sensory input to put in, you're not seeing so many things, you're not feeling so many things. Your brain, this huge part of your body, is able to decompress a little bit and relax, and there's not as much input that it has to take in, so it can heal itself, and it can build the gray matter necessary for a long, sustainable neurological life. So yeah, if you want to look into this with me, or just watch this or not, I don't know. I like geeking out on Sundays, so maybe I'll make this a thing to put out cool science stuff on Sundays, or just rant or rave. Or maybe I shouldn't have this much caffeine on a normal basis or whatever. So anyways, hope you guys have an awesome day, and just try to be mindful. Think about what you're doing and the energy that you're putting out into the world, and if it's not bringing you something sustainable or something good back, then don't put that energy out there. Put it into yourself. Tends to reap better benefits that way. So thanks.